Peace, everybody. My name is Duaba, and it is my honor to support my sister Jessica here, who's with y'all today, and sharing a little bit about our collaboration. My part of the work is to tell you about the Wild Path Collective and the land we take care of, Lily Springs Farm. Wild Path Collective is a crew of queer, trans, black, indigenous people of culture, poor people, landless people, stateless people, people who have been pushed out of our home territories into the ghettos of the United States, in particular the Twin Cities, who have come together to create a space for and with one another where our people who have lost their access to their homelands, and traditional homelands, their ancestral homelands, and who have lost access to land in general, can return to a relationship with it. And our work is very much rooted in the tradition of Marronage, the process of making spaces, fugitive spaces, outlaw spaces, liberated spaces in the midst of intense systemic oppression. Spaces that we take care of are spaces of refuge, stillness, sites where we engage in regenerative forms of agriculture and regeneration of our cultures. And the land, Lily Springs, if you're not familiar with us yet, is just an hour east or 45 minutes if you drive fast of the Twin Cities. Our collective has stewarded the land and had title to the land for the last 3 years. And prior to that, the land was under stewardship of the Utney family, who donated the title to the land to us as a gift, acknowledging after the uprisings that they wanted to pass the land back into the stewardship of indigenous Black people, and end the 100 year and some change legacy of the land being under the tenure and theft of white settlers. And so one of the things that we deal with and are grappling with as a collective is, what does it mean to be stolen people, stateless people, displaced people on stolen land? And how do we be in right relationship with the land, but also with the first peoples of the land? And so Lily Springs, the town of Osceola, where we're located, is at this site of intersection between the Anishinaabe and Dakota nations. The land was stolen through the nasty business of treaty making engaged in by the United States government through the 1837 land cession. The land was also a site of crossing, kinship, trade between the Menominee and Ho-Chunk nations with the Anishinaabe and Dakota. And now we're in the process of figuring out for ourselves on our own terms, as displaced and stolen people, how to go into a practice of land back, recognizing that we are landless and out of our ancestral homes and also need access to land as much as we want to return stewardship and sovereignty over the land to indigenous people. So part of our practice as Maroons is to challenge the reality that we live in, where 98% of all land is held by white people, and not to be the 0.001% of Black and brown people that are continuing to hold stolen goods. And so our whole core purpose is to make a space that prepares our people to free the land, to free more land, recognizing that all land that is stolen is also exploited by the same systems that exploit us and our ancestors. And also to make it possible for our people who have been pushed into the ghetto to return to the land, but return to the land with a mindset that's rooted in harmony and healing, rather than some of the same dynamics and impulses to control land and exploit land and get as much money sucked out of the land as we can, that the colonial society we live in pushes onto us. And so for us, just to keep it brief, in our practice of Marronage, something that's been important to us, core to us, as it was to our Maroon ancestors, was creating a site of solidarity and kinship where oppressed people and indigenous people could come together to foster a sense of kinship and also to be in right relationship with one another, so that this question of how do we as stolen and stateless people, displaced people, landless people, be good guests on the stolen territory of indigenous nations. And so part of our practice has been to facilitate learning, co-learning sessions about land back, with the focus on how can we facilitate land back and also a future for Black people that have been displaced here, Black and brown people that have been displaced here. Recognizing that the future that we want to live in is one where our children and our children's children see themselves and one another as kin, and also see themselves as kin to the land. So just to kind of end here, our collective is in the process of building a commons where together people who are members will not own the land, but instead have a shared responsibility to care for the land and care for one another. And we are in the ongoing practice of land back as we're figuring out how to restore relationship, sovereignty, stewardship over the land to indigenous communities. In the between time, we currently have the land under a cultural conservation easement. And so what it means is that the land is protected from future development into a big box store or an apartment complex. And that also the rights of indigenous people, both the First Nations of these territories and indigenous peoples from further afield who have been displaced here, can have perpetual access to the land for healing, ceremony, gathering food, hunting, and residing. And so that's a little bit about our project and our work. Would love to talk with you all more and invite you out to the land so that you can learn more about it in person. And for right now, I'll pass it back to you all who hosting the event. Sorry I couldn't be with you, but looking forward to meeting some of y'all out at Lily Springs. Peace.